fall pon fancy.
Represent president on here.
The opposition leader Mark Golding has caved into pressure and admitted that he is a citizen of both Jamaica and Britain. The question is, can the opposition leader remain in his position as he is? He says legally he's on solid ground, but he has yet to pronounce on whether there is moral or political correctness to his status as a dual citizen. Those are the issues we'll examine this evening on Lead Story. Whether the leader of the opposition in Jamaica, the Prime Minister in waiting, or the Prime Minister from that matter, can afford to swear allegiance or to be a citizen of any other country but Jamaica. Let's start the show. Welcome to Lead Story here on CVM TV. So, what do we have here? The opposition leader, Mark Jefferson Golding, has admitted that he is a dual citizen. He holds both Jamaican and British citizenship. What does that mean for him in his role as opposition leader? And what would it mean if he were to become Prime Minister? Can we have a situation in a country such as Jamaica, especially one moving to remove the monarchy and to emerge as a republic after 60 plus years of independence? Can we afford to have someone in that high office, the highest political office in the land, holding one leg in Jamaica and one leg outside of Jamaica? That's the question. The opposition leader says he is legally on solid ground. We will hear about that. But morally and politically, is it correct for the opposition leader to maintain his current status as a man with a Jamaican and a British passport? Those are the issues we'll examine on Lead Story this afternoon. First, let's hear from the Prime Minister, Andrew Holness, who was a guest on CVM at Sunrise earlier today. And the issue of dual citizenship was put to him. This is what he had to say.
Our position is that a final court should be a Jamaican final court. However, whatever ends up being the final court should go through this process of an indicative referendum. The people should have a say on it.
Well, that's the other local hot matter, the matter of what should happen where Jamaica's final appellate court is concerned. Of course, it's the UK-based Privy Council as we speak, but there are many clamoring for the Caribbean Court of Justice, the CCJ. Others are saying maybe we should have a domestic final court, but that's to come at another time. We're talking about the issue of dual citizenship. This is what the Prime Minister said about it earlier on CVM at Sunrise.
Once you are a Jamaican, you have Jamaican citizenship, we believe you should be entitled to enter our parliament and serve.
Right.
However, having entered the parliament, if it is that you intend to become the ultimate decision maker, then you must divest yourself of any other loyalty, even if it is not required legally. Because in the minds of the Jamaican people, or any country, they're going to want to know that your ultimate decision maker is only making decisions based upon a single, transparent loyalty and allegiance to them.
And that you're in it with us. You can't escape. You are in what we are in.
And so more pointedly to my question then, that in relation to your opposition counterpart, that you're saying that his position would be untenable.
I think anyone in that position would be untenable. And not just that, I think it would be incurable.
Untenable, incurable. That's what the Prime Minister thinks about the whole situation. And we're going to get some perspective as to whether or not Mark Golding is correct to find comfort in the legal soundness of his situation, about what to do about the moral and political implications of him remaining a dual citizen. We're going to invite to the discussion Sondre Roden. He is a youth commentator. He is a rising star of public commentary. And of course, we have with him Dr. Marcus Goff. He is an attorney at law, of course, to bring the legal perspective to the reasoning. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Welcome to the lead story here on CVM TV.
Good afternoon.
I don't hear Sondre. Sondre, are you there? All right. We have Dr. Goff to start with. Dr. Goff, let's start with what the opposition leader has said. He said, look, there is no legal reason for me to change my status as a British citizen in the context of him being the leader of the opposition in Jamaica. Let's examine that first up. Legally, is he correct?
Yes, definitely. Mr. Golding is correct on that point. You know, the Constitution speaks to dual citizenship being prohibited in the context of non-Commonwealth dual citizenship, right? But from Commonwealth citizenship, then all of that is accepted. And of course, we are still a part of the Commonwealth at present. And so, by virtue of him having UK citizenship as his other citizenship, then that is permitted under the current Constitution.
All right. So legally, he is on solid ground. The fact of the leader of opposition of a country like Jamaica, especially, well, moving to full independence, some will say, leaving the monarchy behind, becoming a republic, and an opposition leader in Mark Golding who has said that Jamaica must decide on what it is doing where the move to republicanism is concerned. He says Jamaica can't afford to have 1 foot out and 1 foot in the King's Yard at the same time that he is a dual citizen in that proverbial King's Yard. Does the position of Mark Golding reconcile with his comments about the move towards republicanism?
Well, I think, we must try to appreciate that you have individual, persons and their, rights, their right to citizenship, which of course can be hereditary to your parents and so forth. And then we have the future of the nation itself, right, which as a collective, sharing a collective history of trauma, of colonization and so forth, then would want to be able to collectively move away from that into a true sort of state of sovereignty, right? And so I think that in those two conversations is not quite the same thing. No, I mean, we are as Caribbean people, oftentimes having dual heritage or sometimes triple and multiple heritage coming from not only parents, but also grandparents and so forth, right? And so I think that as we talk about nowadays the diaspora, how to engage the diaspora, how to appreciate that we have more Jamaicans outside of Jamaica than we have here in Jamaica, it then
except Dr. Goff, except Dr. Goff, except that heritage and citizenship are two wholly different things.
Well, they're related in the context of, like Mr. Golding, having one parent from Jamaica, one from the UK. I'm saying similarly, many of us have that where we have one parent who may be here, one is in the USA, maybe Canada, and so I think also that we need to take that into account as well. So for me, I would want to say that in order to serve your country, you need to divest yourself of one or other of your entitlements.
Hold that point. We're opening our first break here on Lead Story, talking about the constitutional challenge, well, the issue of citizenship rather, more pointedly. Mark Golding, a dual citizen, and how that reconciles with his position as leader of the opposition, Prime Minister in waiting here in Jamaica.
It's controversial.
Not really.
The controversial.
Not the honesty, the middle piece at all. I just love chat, bro. I'm just not for fast and people business, so.
If a man go see me, I'll got my son and I shed my tear and want to look at me as weak. That's his problem,
Team problem.
I ain't tell man none of my friend them to left the woman no time.
House can't escape from the tool.
You know why you buy the house? You never have told you my father.
Yeah, you know.
You never have told you. KC bill for ghetto youth.
I mean, like the culture of trying to help.
Yeah, that made me think until Triple X come out. I say that's controversial.
The Cut is brought to you by Flo and Guinness.
Bollywood has never been this good. Catch Made for Each Other weekdays at 12:30 p.m. on your drama station. Brought to you by
On this week episode of Cooking with Love, this you don't want to miss. Mr. Jamil Foster is here.
When me I go through my dark times and I see where the music inspire me so much, I feel confident in myself and pick myself up and keep moving and not giving up.
Yeah.
When I see the power of the music, I decide to say, yo, this is what I'm gonna do.
Take a tread in the hills like cars and bring me problems to Jah. Yeah, man. At them one food, them a go fall pan pan.
Represent to that one.
Welcome back to Lead Story here on CVM TV. We're talking about the dual citizenship case as it involves the opposition leader, Mark Jefferson Golding, who has admitted that he is the holder of British and Jamaican passports. The government say, well, look, that's untenable. The Prime Minister says it's both untenable and incurable, and that the holder of office of Prime Minister or opposition leader ought not to be a citizen of any other country but Jamaica. I'm trying to wade through the issues for your benefit so you can understand with an attorney at law who is eminently qualified to speak to these matters, Dr. Marcus Goff. Dr. Goff, so let's walk slowly once again. I see Sandra Roden has joined the discussion. Mark Golding has said, it's a matter of public record, that that press conference he called, the most recent press conference the opposition called, he was clarion clear. He said, look, we cannot as a nation have 1 foot in and 1 foot out of the King's Yard. We have to make up our mind and take both feet out. And I'm asking you if Jamaicans are to take that comment seriously and to believe in the opposition leader's position when he himself is a holder of a British passport alongside a Jamaican passport.
Right, so you're asking outside of the legal context now, whether, as you say, morally or politically,
yes, sir,
this is something that is tenable. So I think that the Jamaican people would have to determine whether or not they think that by virtue of having another nationality or citizenship that you are unable to properly serve or to dedicate yourself to the service of Jamaica, you know. So I think from my own perspective, I wouldn't say that automatically by virtue of having more than one passport, you are unable to be trusted to serve. I don't think I've seen the evidence to show that persons who fall in that category have some sort of disability or are incapable of serving in public office here. And so I would need to really, I think from my own perspective, you know, see some proof of that would lead me to want to exclude persons in that category from being able to serve in public life.
I see Sandra Roden on the Zoom. Welcome, Sandra. So here's the issue, Sandra. The issue of authenticity. We have a leader who has spoken clear and has won many souls in this push to get good momentum behind the push to a republic. And people believed Mark Golding when he said, look, man, we should leave the monarchy behind, forget about King Charles. It's all about Project Jamaica. Can't have 1 foot in, 1 foot out of the King's Yard, only to then realize that the man who says so, or who has said so, is in fact a dual citizen. Do you think the people will have trouble authenticating Mark Golding as a man with the right message for them?
I think they definitely will have trouble with that. You know why I have to say that to you point blank, George, is because my grandmother called me and asked me, what is this all about? Just to get clarity, because she was a bit, you know, she was a bit questioning like what is really happening, because she couldn't understand because the issue seemed so confounded. And, you know, my position on it has always been, if that was always the case, a lot of people knew who would have known of his heritage, but because of his position of opposition leader and because of where he is going to vie to go at the next general elections, that of course presents question marks. Now, some people will say, and I agree with the legal perspective as it is in the Constitution, Commonwealth citizens are allowed to serve, and it's outlined there. But then the question of loyalty, it's not really a question of, is he going to be loyal to the British Crown or is he going to be loyal to us? But then people start thinking about decision-making processes. And when you start considering a leader making decisions for an entire nation, and then there is, I would say, that little red flag over his head saying, hey, but he has this, people would have wanted to know that from before. So the blunder happened because he would have made that pertinent statement about, the CCJ, moving clear-cut from the monarchy, which, of course, Jamaica wants to move clear-cut from the monarchy. But then, of course, it is politics. Politics will get involved, and the Jamaica Labour Party is taking advantage of this opportunity to say, hey, we can't trust this man because of his citizenship. It should not be the case based on the law. But how it is with psychology, morality, the idea in people's minds, they're going to be questioning now whether or not the opposition leader was really serious in his statement. I think he maybe was, but at the end of the day, that cloud now that is formed because of the citizenship issue is something that a lot of Jamaicans are going to have questioning in their minds.
Dr. Goff, I've heard people who aren't legal professionals or legal scholars say that Prime Minister Mark Golding, if he ascends to that level, would have an obvious problem because as the Prime Minister in Jamaica, he would be the Minister of Defense, and that doesn't reconcile with British law, which prohibits its citizens from fighting a war on or behalf of another state other than Britain. Is that your understanding of the situation?
No, that argument, sounds interesting, and it's something that I think we'd have to look more into. But certainly in the current context, where we don't have that issue of saying that Jamaica and Britain are odds are at war, I think if you look at the context of persons who are in public office, then we as Jamaicans have the ability to be able to structure and to ensure that our public servants sign on the dotted line, right? According to the job description and the contract that we give them that we want to fulfill in the post that is vacant, right? And so I think we need to structure in that regard more safeguards to ensure loyalty, to ensure accountability, and to ensure repercussions for breaking that trust.
But what better way, Dr. Goff, what better way to ensure all you've said, and you speak well, of course, but how better to ensure that all of that is guaranteed than having someone who is wholly and solely Jamaican signing on the dotted line that you speak of?
Right, but I'm saying the fact is that you have many Jamaicans who are still in public life very corruptible. They have no other nationality, but they're very corruptible. And so not having a Jamaican nationality doesn't make you less corruptible or more corruptible, I think. I think it's the morals of the individual we need to ensure, and the principles and standards of governance we need to ensure are accountable, transparent, and enforceable.
Sandre, do you feel comfortable living in a country where it's possible that you could have a prime minister who's also the national of a citizen of another country?
Wow, George, that's a big one. But I want to start off by agreeing with the statements that Dr. Goff would have made as it relates to the fact that it doesn't change the corruptibility of a person. As it relates to being comfortable, I would share some discomfort on the mere thought of international relations, which is something that I studied, and understanding how that plays out on the international scene. Yes, we can have the job descriptions. Yes, they should be signed. There should be a clear dotted line. I agree on all of those things. But then there is a cloud of question in my mind. Say you go to the UN and you're making a decision. Even now, people consider that, okay, a least developed country will be influenced by a developed country because they have the Belt and Road Initiative from China, for example. And you think about that and people say, oh, too much influence of China, too much influence of the US. The question that will literally be in a lot of persons' mind would be, is there an influence from that other country on this person? It's not a question of whether or not they've signed, whether or not they're moral, whether or not they're corruptible, but it's just the question of, do we think that this individual will act in the will of the Jamaican people, wholly and solely? And that is just a consideration. So it's just a cloud. It's really a cloud, and I think that leaders of our country, it's going to be the case. A lot of people do believe that, we shouldn't have dual citizens even in Parliament or Senate.
We're going to come to that in the final segment, gentlemen. Stay where we are going to take a break here on Lead Story. Much more on the other side.
Holy Road. Hey everybody, what's up? It's your boy John Mark Wigan, host on the show Holy Road. Listen, people need to know what's happening in the churches and in ministry in all of Jamaica. It's an absolute blessing. We're really excited to share this. Tune in to CVM, see it happen.
Sizzla Kalonji, live in Kingston, Jamaica.
Living in Rome, my people, how safe you are. Away from your home, I say.
Sizzla! Live!
Yeah, crush them! From big long,
Touch the Road Records.
Why don't know on them? Why them from like it's a note on them? Gorillas come out on them. Beers and run out on them. Why don't know on them? From like it's a note on them.
Welcome back to Lead Story. We're talking the issue of dual citizenship. Remember in 2007, 2008, when the then PNP opposition, well, still PNP opposition now, but the PNP was in opposition then, the JLP won the election, and the PNP went to court to have Daryl Vaz and several of his colleagues removed from the court. The court sent all of those cases back to by-elections, and the JLP still clung on to, still managed to hold on to power. The point out of all of that is that the JLP was the one who was on the back foot from the dual citizenship challenges mounted by the PNP. Now we have a PNP president, leader of the opposition, saying that he would like to have dual citizens sitting in the House of Representatives as members of Parliament. And to sweeten the pot, he says that he himself is a dual citizen, although that citizenship is shared between Jamaica and a Commonwealth nation, which of course does not make him ineligible to serve as a legislator. I'm talking with Dr. Marcus Goff, he's an attorney at law, and Sandra Roden, he is a public commentator. I asked you, Sandra, before the break about whether you'd be comfortable living in a country with a prime minister who's a dual citizen. You didn't take the question on frontally, but I'm going to bring it back. But before I go there, Dr. Goff, let me ask you this. The prime minister has said, you know what? I'm for dual citizens serving in our parliament, upper house or lower house, but I am not for a dual citizen holding the office of prime minister or leader of the opposition. What part of that do you agree with or disagree with, if any part?
That's for me?
Yes, Dr. Goff, that's for you.
Okay. Well, right. I mean, I think all these things are things to consider. What I would ask, in my own thought process is, is there an inherent risk that we think exists because someone has dual nationality, right? Is it only certain nationalities, or is it all nationalities that pose a problem when we think of this dual nationality issue, right? And if it is that we are satisfied that it is not a matter of nationality, then I'm not sure that we should differentiate between persons in Parliament and the Prime Minister or leader of the office, right? Because again, I'm not clear that we can justify that there's an inherent risk by virtue of holding more than one nationality, So, for example, I think nowadays that people are holding Jamaican and Barbadian nationality, Jamaican and Trinidadian and Guyanese. Persons are holding Jamaican and Ghanaian nationality as we look to, repatriate to Africa and so forth. And so I'm saying, if you look at the remittances, a lot of Jamaicans in the diaspora who have dual nationality are supporting Jamaica in very tangible, practical ways. And so sometimes our love for Jamaica even blossoms outside of Jamaica more, and so I wouldn't want us, let's say, to just simply broad brush all dual nationals and say that they are risks, they are, potentially disloyal, and we should be, very suspicious of them. I think we should move away from that, but have a commitment to certain principles that allows for persons who have sought better elsewhere, who want to serve locally, to be able to do so transparently.
Yeah, and just before you come in, Sandre, I'm getting a statement here to hand from the Office of the Prime Minister. It has nothing to do with this issue, but it's still breaking news. And it reads that Prime Minister Andrew Holness has advised the Governor General, His Excellency Sir Patrick Allen, that there will be changes made to the executive effective tomorrow, May 21, 2024. So a change in cabinet. One, Honorable Robert Nestor Morgan is to be reassigned to the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. He will have responsibility for works. Remember, the works portfolio was previously held by Everald Warmington. Robert Nestor Morgan will now be in charge of works. He was the minister without portfolio in charge of information before. And now Senator Abka Fitzelny has been named Parliamentary Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister. That's a surprising one there. Abka Fitzelny, the Senator, named a Parliamentary Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister. And the administration, it says, well, Senator Dr. the Honorable Dana Morris Dixon is to be given responsibility for information in addition to skills and digital transformation. So that was a virgin portfolio, skills and digital transformation that Dana Morris Dixon led. Never before did we have that on the books. She is still in charge of that, but on top of that, she's been tasked with leading the information portfolio. So Senator Dana Morris Dixon is now the new information minister. Robert Nestor Morgan, the previous information minister, he's now in charge of works, and Abka Fitzelny, Senator Abka Fitzelny, is Parliamentary Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister. Those are the changes coming from Jamaica House. Andrew Holness advising the Governor General of those changes. Those changes will take effect on Tuesday. So just had to put that bit of breaking news in, gentlemen. That's the business that we're in. So I ask you now, Sandra, Dr. Goff has given his perspective. Dual citizens sitting in the House of Representatives, sitting in upper and lower house, but not, according to Andrew Holness, eligible for consideration for the role of opposition leader or prime minister. Do you agree with that? If not, why?
I think it's a nuanced perspective, and we have to consider all the things. When you look at the laws as they exist, you also have to consider what will be the new constitution. Is it a case where we're going to have to put specific clauses to ensure that this is an issue? Or the question a lot of people will have is this just a political tool in the moment to say this is what we want? Because to be honest, what we've seen is that there's consensus on both sides that dual citizens should be in Parliament. But what we really need to see, if they're going to bring CCJ and Privy Council to referendum, send it to referendum, because many Jamaicans believe, those who don't hold a dual citizenship, that dual citizens shouldn't be in Parliament, while those who do have it, those who are abroad who also can vote, believe that that should be the case. The clause by the Prime Minister, it sounds good, but then I have to see the perspective of Dr. Goff coming in here. How do you really disqualify somebody, and what